Welcome everybody to our Friday Capital Chat. Hope everybody's going to get a chance to get out and enjoy this beautiful weather. Just a couple, I guess we've got a couple more people in the waiting room. Let's get them in here. Just a couple of housekeeping items. You should be able, we have our interpreter Jeff here with us today. He should be pinned for you. We also have closed captioning. It's down at the bottom. If you hit those three little dots that say more, you should be able to pull up closed captioning. We are recording. We will send out the recording later on. Usually that comes out about Monday. There should be plenty of time for questions today because you guys have us for a whole hour. But we do have something new today that I want to highlight. We're going to be doing two capital chats, one in June, one in August, and then one in September. And I think we'd like to hear from you guys what dates work out best. We did hear from some advocates last year that Fridays during the summer just wasn't it for them. So we wanted to do a poll here to see what day and time works best for you guys. And you can pick up to 4 options. And I think Heidi is going to, yep, there it is. So select what days and times work best for you, and we'll try to accommodate that for our summer capital chats. But we're excited. We do have a special guest today from the Secretary of State's office, so we're excited for that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about session. And I think before I turn it over to Carlin to introduce our guest speaker today, I want to wish all those moms out there an early Mother's Day. And with that, Carlin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Brooke. And hi, everyone. Carlin Crow with the Iowa DD Council. And we're very grateful today to have a guest speaker join us to talk about the upcoming primary election and some other information about voting in Iowa. And she is Bailey Kelly, who is the Director of Elections from the Iowa Secretary of State's office. And apologies, Bailey, I saw we spelled your name wrong on that first slide. And
oops, that's me.
And we seem to have a problem spelling names this week. As somebody whose name always gets spelled wrong, I should have double checked that. So anyway, Bailey joined us last year, right? When I believe when you first came into your position. So we're happy to have you back, and now we can ask you the hard questions because you're seasoned now, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. And she has some slides we're going to pull up and start talking about accessible voting in Iowa and also the primaries coming up. I think, Heidi, are you cueing the slides?
Yes.
Here we go. Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everybody. As Carlin mentioned, I'm the Director of Elections for the Secretary of State's office. I joined the office almost 3 years ago next month in a lower position and became director last year. Before that, I worked in elections in the Johnson County Auditor's Office. So I've been working in elections for almost 6 years now. So the slide that we had pulled up previously that the DD Council had pulled together, those are some important dates, which at the very end of this, I'll have a slide for resources. So you can get that information from the slide that they've put together, but you can also find it on our website, which we'll talk about towards the end. So first thing I want to talk about is accessible voting in Iowa. So if we could move to the next slide here. First and foremost, absentee voting is more than just voting by mail. So if you want to have all those options available to you in Iowa, it's called in-person absentee. You might hear it casually referred to as early voting, which it's not really early voting because the votes aren't getting counted until election day, just with all of the other ballots. So we call it in-person absentee. That's going to be available at your county auditor's office starting May 13th. So that's next Wednesday during their regular business hours. The public may have petitioned some satellite voting sites, so that will be at a public library, at a school, at a church, at a community center, wherever the public has requested that the county auditor set up a satellite voting site. So they try to schedule those, at peak traffic times. So, Saturday morning at the library, or, Sunday afternoon at a church as people are getting out of there. So keep an eye out, check your county auditor's website, their social media. It's also going to be published in their election notice, and it'll be in local newspapers if they have any of those satellites scheduled. And if it's at a location that you frequent in your day-to-day life, then there'll also be a notice posted prominently on the front door saying we have a voting satellite scheduled for that day. So you can walk in and vote an absentee ballot, and then the auditor will keep that and put it with the rest of the absentees, and it'll get processed with all of the other mail-in ballots on election night. At your auditor's office and at these satellite voting sites, they will have ballot marking devices, which we'll talk a little bit more about, and also voter assistance through a bipartisan team of poll workers, or you can always bring a companion that you designate to assist you in marking your ballot if that's an issue for you. And all polling places, including these satellite sites and the auditor's office itself, there is an Iowa statute that requires all of these voting locations to be surveyed prior to each primary election. So every every even numbered year, they have to go out into the field. And if they've had construction, or if there have been major weather events, lots of freezes and thaws and freezes and thaws, go out and take a look at the parking lot, any new construction. If it's a new polling place, before they designate it as such, then they're going to have to go out and survey it to make sure it meets ADA requirements. And I will say, this was one of my favorite parts of the job when I was working at the county. First of all, it gets you out of the office, and you can always maybe swing and pick up some coffee before you make your way back. But the interesting thing that I learned in that process is the Department of Justice requirements for polling places are even more stringent than the standard ADA requirements. So we have, a checklist that we have to go through that's provided by the DOJ, and that could often create some conversations with places. We would go out to schools and we would tell them that they don't meet the requirements necessary for a polling place, and they'd say, "Well, we're a school. Of course, we're ADA compliant, and the level of accessibility required to be a polling place is even that much higher than any other public facility." So if you want to go on election day to your polling place, again, you may request assistance from a person of your choice or from that bipartisan team of poll workers that I mentioned, and you will sign a form indicating that you have requested this assistance. There are ballot marking devices, so they have a touch screen, they have headphones that you can use. There is a navigation pad that has the Braille markings, so you know if you're pressing up, down, volume, things like that. And they also have inputs for a sip and puff device, if that's something that you need to use. It allows you to mark your choices, review your choices, and then it prints a paper ballot that is entered into the tabulator along with all the other ballots. Another option for accessible voting is calling your county auditor's office and scheduling curbside voting at your polling place. This is also available at the auditor's office itself during that pre-election in-person absentee period. If it's on election day, June 2nd, you have to go to your assigned polling place. Or if you are traveling with somebody, then you can have your companion enter the polling place and request it. And in this process, a bipartisan team will bring out all of the forms that you need to sign. They'll check your ID. They'll bring a ballot for you to mark, and including a secrecy envelope, and then they'll bring it back into the building and enter that ballot into the tabulator. So I want to stress that both our office and your county auditors, we provide trainings to the poll workers on providing a positive voting experience to every single voter, including differently abled voters. But keep in mind that the person in front of you may not have a lot of experience in these situations. So we provide that training, provide that guidance. DD Council, has resources that we provide to them on how to interact with voters of all types. So while this is certainly not your responsibility, be prepared to communicate your specific needs or your requests to facilitate that process of making sure that they are giving you what you need to make the voting process go smoothly for you. The ballot marking device that I mentioned before is required to be set up before the polls open. But the poll workers have a lot that they have to get done before the polls open. And sometimes if you're there right at 7 a.m., it could be that it's not quite set up yet. So again, asking for a little bit of patience and grace if the poll workers, forgot that part of their training and our emphasis on making sure that the accessibility machine is set up. Because it does take, 5 minutes or so to get the machine all set up and ready to go. So now I want to talk a little bit about election integrity. This has become a very common topic and one that we love talking about and educating people on because Iowa has a very strong track record. Every time MIT puts out their list of the best administered elections, Iowa is towards the top of that list. So the tabulators, which when I say tabulator, that's it looks like a garbage can with a motherboard on the top of it. And that's what you put your ballot in, and that scans them and counts the votes. So those tabulators and the ballot marking devices are publicly tested before every election. You are invited to those public tests. Again, the county auditor will publish notice of when those tests are being held. You can come and you can mark your own ballots to be read by the machine. And so in that process, they have what's called a test deck, a stack of ballots that their staff has marked. And so they know what the results are supposed to be. And then they run them through the machines and they make sure that the results that the machines are returning match the expected results based on how they mark those ballots. Mentioned this a couple of times already. Every polling place, including satellites, assigns a bipartisan team. In addition to assisting voters who request it, they will also check the seals in the morning on the equipment. They will count the ballots and sign all the forms that need to be completed at the beginning and the end of the day. Those ballot marking devices, again, they create paper ballots. Iowa has paper ballots. Other states do have systems that it's just like a touch screen and then it captures that information. And there isn't a paper ballot that's produced or given to the voter. That's not how Iowa does it. We have those paper ballots, including the ones that are created by the ballot marking device that are then entered in the tabulator and collected with the rest of the ballots. Several years ago, I want to say it was 2018, we instituted a law that requires every election, every county to conduct a post-election audit that confirms the tabulated results and matches the ballots. So on the Wednesday morning after every election, not just the statewide, not just the federals, we can see when counties have elections, and we have about 400 elections a year in Iowa. So if you have a special school board election, then the Wednesday morning after it, our office is randomly selecting a precinct on Wednesday morning and communicating to the county auditor, this is the precinct that you'll be conducting your audit for. And they convene an audit board, which is at least 3, depending on the size of the precinct, it might be more, at least 3 poll workers that hand count the ballots for a specific race. And they hand count them and make sure that it matches the tape. And then they reseal the ballots back up and return them back to the auditor. And since we instituted this law requiring that, we have had 100% accuracy in the post-election audit. So we're very proud of that. Right, so a little bit of context for the primary elections. So these will be held on June 2nd. I always joke that they aren't actually elections. It's a nomination process for the recognized political parties, which currently are just the Democrats and the Republicans. Occasionally, another party, the Libertarians, for example, will meet the threshold to be recognized as a political party. But at this point, it's just the Ds and the Rs. So it's a nomination process, and the winner of that primary election will appear as that party's candidate on the general election in November. Other candidates can still get on that November ballot. They're either nominated by what is technically called a non-party political organization, or they can run unaffiliated with any party. And so they are still in the filing process. That window actually closes on election day for them to file their paperwork to appear on the November ballot. Different states do this differently, so I want to explain how it is in Iowa. It's what's known as a semi-closed primary. So you do not need to be affiliated with a party before you walk into your polling place or before you request a ballot, but you do have to select one party. You can't fill out a Democratic ballot and a Republican ballot. This does change your voter registration. So when the county auditor, at the end of the day, it gives you credit for voting in that election on your voter registration record, it will change you to the party which you requested a ballot for. You can change it back. You just have to fill out a new voter registration form after the election. But that's what a semi-closed primary is. So why bother voting? Even in districts that are heavily red or heavily blue, or there's only one candidate on the ballot, it's incredibly important to make your voice heard. In a past life, I was a graduate student in communication studies, and we learned about a theory called the spiral of silence. And it suggests that people tend to stay quiet when they assume that their opinion is unpopular. So it makes it seem like the majority view is much more dominant than it is. But if everybody actually spoke their truth, you would realize that a lot more people think like you do than what you would assume reading the news or talking to the neighbors, because the loudest voices, right, are the ones getting heard. And so you think, I don't want to speak up, and I don't want to be the outsider. I don't want to be the one that's not in the in group. So it's a documented sort of social concept that it's important for people to get out and speak their true opinions and not just believe that they they're not in the majority. So engaging with the electoral process it'll benefit your communities, your friends and your family, and honestly improve election administration for everybody. So, right, the local races are incredibly important. Your city councils, your school boards, your county offices, right? These are the decision makers in your local community. Obviously, the federal and the statewide races, they get more headlines. You see their ads more. So they're also incredibly important, right? They set state and federal policy. So not downplaying that, but the local races are just as important, if not more so. And when I say here that participating in voting improves election administration for everybody, I don't want our poll workers to not have experience interacting with different types of voters. Having that real world experience, interacting with people from all different backgrounds and all different abilities, and right, we learn things from that that they can take into their personal lives, back into the community, and we learn how we can improve election administration. What do we need to train on further? What are the ways that we can make this experience better for all voters? So you can go to our website, sos.iowa.gov. There's an elections tab that'll take you to all different kinds of areas with questions. There's an entire page um, about voters with disabilities. A lot of the same information is available at voterready.iowa.gov. It's also a site maintained by us. It's just a little more, the user interface is different and kind of slicker and might be easier to navigate, but you might prefer the traditional website at the top there. If you have any questions, our email address, elections@sos.iowa.gov. We're happy to answer them. We have a small but mighty team in the Secretary of State's office that responds to questions just as quickly as we can. And your other most important resource is your local county auditor. They'll be able to tell you again about those satellite locations. Sometimes the in-person absentee voting isn't necessarily at the courthouse. They might have a different building where their elections office is. So you can call them. You can also use our website, I will say, to look up your voter registration and make sure that you're registered. There's under the elections tab, it says, am I registered to vote? You can look up your polling place there, get the contact information for your county auditor. So you have some resources there. DD Council also knows how to put you into contact with the right people. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I hope you all make a plan to vote on June 2nd.
Thank you, Bailey. If anybody has questions, feel free to come off mute and ask Bailey or put it in the chat. We'll give her another minute here to ask some questions, answer some questions.
I put the link to their elections in the chat. It's really an accessible, user-friendly website. Their information is organized so well. There's videos on there. There's a pocket voter guide. Just if you go and explore it, you'll find a lot of resources. And it's my first place to go when I can't remember when I'm supposed to get my absentee ballot in and all of that. So.
Thanks, Amy. Any questions for Bailey? Well, Bailey, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate the information. Appreciate all the details about accessibility and also the communications theory guide we got today. I love that.
Oh, flashbacks to when I was a teacher. That was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Bailey.
Thank you, Bailey.
We'll put the dates back up that Bailey mentioned, but also it gets confusing, and all of us get confused about absentee when it starts, when you have to request, when you get your ballot. So check out, this is a really good synopsis of those dates, or a summary here, that the Monday, May 18th is the last day to request an absentee ballot by mail. So then when your absentee ballot is mailed to you, there's a specific date by county, I believe. So that's why things are also a little hard to communicate on a statewide level, because what's going on with your county office, with your county auditor, and then, as she said, there may be additional early voting or early absentee ballot voting in your county. So it's really highly suggested you check your county auditor's office, or in Polk County is called the Polk County Election Office. So they even have different names. So don't mean to confuse you more, but just be ready. And hopefully when you dig a little, you can find what you need by looking there, or you can go to the Secretary of State's office, and sometimes it's easy to click to find where you need to go to get some of these questions answered. So just don't forget to vote on Tuesday, June 2nd, if you're going in person, and bring your ID.
Yeah,
Anything else?
I was just gonna add, Bailey mentioned that you need to declare a Republican or a Democrat. So I know a lot of people are nervous about that when they like to be a no party. But since we do have, challenged elections. We have a primary for U.S. Senate on the Democratic side. You have a primary for the governor on the Republican side. Um, she mentioned that you need to change, you have to declare one or the other to vote. I just wanted to remind people you can change it back the next day. You can change your party as often as you want. So if you just wanted to change it to be able to vote in the primary, you can do that and then change it back. So I was just gonna remind people they're not locked in to becoming a partisan person if they want to stay independent. You can still vote in the primary. You would want to change it back after that. So, but you can change that as many times as you want. They might get annoyed at you if you change it every day, but all right, well, we'll move along. Just a reminder that the legislative sessions ended. Yay. So it ended Sunday night after like a 30-hour run. There were 1,791 bills introduced this year. Typically about, I haven't counted up how many they sent to the governor yet, but typically it's about 10 to 13% every year. I track it every year, and that's always within that percentage range. So probably somewhere between about 170 and 200 bills made it through. That is like 12 bills introduced per legislator. So that's a lot of bills. If we felt like it was just a lot, it was. But just a reminder, the governor has 30 days to sign or veto a bill. If she does no action, it becomes a law automatically. But she can veto them and stop them from becoming a law. Or on a budget bill, she actually can line item veto, which means she can pick out specific lines in a budget bill to veto. So if she doesn't like money that's going to something or language in that budget bill, she can take that out. That's called a line item veto. So Carlin, do you want to talk about sadly what didn't pass?
Um, yeah, thanks for, I have to deliver the sad news. So, we were all working on the Let Us Work campaign this year, ever since last fall, actually, to try and educate lawmakers about the barriers to employment for people with disabilities and how Medicaid income and asset limits increase that barrier if there are limits. And so the Work Without Worry bill that had been introduced the previous session was still alive because this is the second year of the General Assembly. It did not, of course, go anywhere, but the one provision in it, actually a couple, were included in House File 2716 and Senate File 2315. And these four parts were made it till almost the end. There was the Senate did not include it. It did not take their bill forward. The House did. It passed the House, got over to the Senate, got mixed up with all of the other public assistance discussion and bills, including other public assistance programs like SNAP. So it kind of became part of a SNAP bill. It actually got the MEPD provision that would have raised the income limit to 300% of federal poverty level was included in the budget for the House too. So we were very hopeful that that it was going to pass. We thought it was going to pass, and then the policy part of the bill did not pass, and then took that provision out, and so then they took it out of the budget too. So nothing really happened this year with what what advocates had been discussing and what we had been tracking as far as what we thought could make the most impact. The one thing that did pass, and Amy will talk about this, was now people who are on the MEPD program and have to pay a premium can pay electronically. So that is a good thing, and that was included, but that was very small in comparison to what everybody was hoping. So the Let Us Work campaign will charge forward, and it'll be up to you all to let us know what we should work on and what your concerns and hopes are for doing something in an upcoming session. So thanks for all of the work that everybody did advocating for what you thought was important. It did make a difference. Um, you were heard. Legislators told us that, and the work without worry language became kind of a household name, and that's because of all of your efforts. So good job to all of you. And we know these things take time, and we all have to be patient. So we just will move forward with something hopefully new and better in a new legislature too, and with a new governor.
Yeah. And
So,
and Carlin will talk a little bit at the end about what things are in the hopper for this summer and what we can do. But I want to underscore it's really not bad news. I mean, it's sad that it didn't pass, but it's amazing how much momentum happened in just 2 years. This stuff takes a long time, and I mean, I know there's some of you on here that can attest how long even simple changes take. I mean, Roxanne can probably write a book about it, how long a simple change takes to get made in the legislature. But 2 years is not a long time. It can take 6 to 10 years to get things passed, and I know that's hard, but I really want to make sure that people understand this is a huge success to get it that far, and to have it championed by a Republican when it was originally introduced by a Democrat and pushing as far as the House could, because really the holdup was in the Senate. So, I mean, I really think that people need to know that you sold it in one chamber. We just have another one to work on in the next year. So um, kudos to everybody. But let's talk about a few of the bills that did pass. I think most of these are good on this page. Well, most, not all. But as you had heard us talk about before, a group of individuals who are blind or have low vision have been working over the past 2 years to get a bill passed to require pharmacies provide when requested accessible prescription information at no cost. And so that bill did pass, and it has not yet been signed. I think they've asked for a bill signing. I hope they have. But she'll have all indications show that will be signed. There wasn't much opposition to that. Another bill would eliminate some of the barriers that were identified to accessing subacute mental health services. So, not in a hospital, but not quite ready to go back to their own home settings. Something in between that level that was signed into law. Um, they also addressed a concern that was brought forward by parents that they'd had to go through what's called the Child in Need of Assistance or China process to be able to get their child access to services. And during that process, they were becoming labeled as child abuse because they were unable to provide treatment services for their kids when they've tried everything they can, and either there's nothing available or nobody would accept their child. So through no fault of their own, they were being labeled child abuse. So they made that change so that would not be included in the definition of child abuse if the parent has done everything they can. Another bill also was raised by parents that they were unable to consent to their child's behavioral health commitment They can consent to all other services, but they had to go through the involuntary commitment process, which it takes time and it delayed care for their child. So, putting their child at risk of self-harm. So that was also changed. So all of the things that I had mentioned before all came from parents or from people with disabilities who advocated with their legislators to get something passed. So those were all directly a parent or a person who was blind talk to their legislators about getting a bill passed. Also, the same for this next one that prohibited life insurance from discriminating against somebody who is a living organ donor. So, if you wanted to provide donate part of your, I think it's part of your liver or kidney, one of those you can or you can donate a kidney. You can, but you're still alive. Some life insurance companies were eliminate or discriminating against them by either no longer giving them that insurance or canceling the insurance or raising the premiums quite a bit. So they're no longer able to do that. Also, another bill that would have that allows and broadens the definition of an EpiPen that can be used in school to change it to any of the delivery systems that are available. So just an update on that. You probably read a lot about the taxing of the HMOs. That was a big temporary tax bill that passed and was signed into law quickly because it provides and covers the Medicaid shortfall. So without that, we would have probably seen pretty big Medicaid cuts beyond what was already in the bill for we'll get to that had cost containment. So not cuts, but cost containments. Another one that I know some people in the mental health field we're looking at, we're setting up guardrails for AI and mental health chatbots, therapy chatbots. So this was actually a bill that the technology community and provider communities got together and developed a bill that basically says that you can't pretend to be a therapist if you're a chatbot. You have to have disclosures in place that say that they are not a human, that this is, it identifies people that may be typing things that about self-harm. They would have to be programmed to recognize that and refer somebody to like a suicide hotline or something. There were lots of cases of people reporting that they would type in and test these chatbots and type in like self-harm or suicide. And the chatbots were coming back saying, here's the bridge to jump off of. So that was what kind of was raising the concerns there. So they did put some reasonable requirements in that basically said, this is a chatbot and not a human and doesn't dispense mental health guidance like a professional would. Another bill that the American Heart Association worked on would require the Department of Education to map out all of where all of the school AEDs are. So those automatic paddle kind of things that you hook up to people uh, that can help people that are experiencing cardiac arrest survive, and which schools have those cardiac emergency response plans in place. And once they get that information back, then the legislature wants to look at, do they need to have a program that incentivizes schools to be able to have those plans in place? Um, this one I want to bring up SJR 11. It proposed, and this is the second time it's passed, so it goes to the voters now. On the November ballot, people will be voting on a constitutional amendment that would require 2/3 vote for any income-based tax increase. So, any no millionaire tax, anything that's based on income would require 67 representatives and 34 senators to pass. I know there are a lot of groups that are concerned about this because, that leaves only like sales tax and use tax increases if we get into trouble in the budget. And that's, concerning. Bailey, did you have a comment on that? I know that.
Sorry, I just wanted to explain further about the attesting, the getting rid of the
Oh,
ability for voters to attest for each other. So Iowa has required proof of ID for years and years now. Whenever you vote, either in-person absentee or at your polling place on election day. Um, if somebody has forgotten their ID at home and they're there with somebody who they live with, or they see a neighbor at the polling place that they know, as long as that person lived in the same precinct as them, then they could swear an oath that this person is who they say they are. So that's what they've gotten rid of. So just wanted to underscore the importance of, making a checklist of everything that you need when you leave the house to go vote, and including that proof of identification. So on those resources that you can find on our website. It gives you a list of all the different forms of ID that are approved for voting. And if you don't have a state ID or anything else on the list, when you registered to vote, the county auditor would have sent you a voter ID postcard in the mail. So if you don't have anything on that list and you can't find the one that the auditor sent you can call them and ask them to send you another one, and you can use that. But yeah, that attestation. And I will also say that doesn't take effect until July 1st. So attestations can still happen in the June primary, but in November, you want to check your pockets and make sure that you have your ID with you.
thanks, Bailey. I forgot. I kind of jumped right over that one. That's an important one too to mention. So um, then also, I know a lot of people were following the ins and outs of the SNAP Public Assistance Eligibility Bill. A lot of this bill was prompted by the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or HR 1, that passed federally and made a lot of these changes. So a lot of this aligns with that, but there are several things where we go further, and that means we have to request a waiver to do that. And so, uh, this bill was the bill that there was a House version of this that had the MEPD program in it. So that's kind of how that got tangled in there. But in the end, the negotiations on this were finalized. I think right that final week of session. Um, but it does require the SAVE database or SAVE system. It's not really a database, but a system. It's a federal system that checks for citizenship and eligibility for public assistance programs. And so uh, that would include Family Investment Program, which is FIP, Medicaid, Child Care, SNAP, which is the Nutrition Assistance Program. The state will now be checking against that database for to see if you're eligible for that. Um, there will be, they're asking for a waiver to allow the state to use other databases to determine eligibility that they have access to. So that should be helpful in supplementing the SAVE, so that if that may not be accurate, maybe an employment database might, or one of the other ones that they can check. So that should help with people not having to supply as much paperwork, or at least reduce the number of people that might have to follow up with additional paperwork to prove that you are eligible if that database is not correct. And then I know this is concerning to some people, but you have, when you're on SNAP, you have an EBT, so an electronic benefit card. And if you don't use all of your assistance funds within 90 days, I think it's actually 91 days, they say 3 months, then they can take back that money. I don't know how often that happens or why that was brought up, but that would require a waiver as well. It does eliminate all Medicaid retroactive eligibility except for those that were protected in the federal law, which is people who are pregnant, a child, or somebody in a nursing home resident. This is really probably going to hurt hospitals the most because that's usually the people that the provider that will go back and see if somebody's eligible for it, and then it can apply backwards to 2 months. Now it would only be for those categories of people would have retroactive eligibility. Right now in Iowa, they have 3 months of look back, but this would be only 2. Um, then it also, a lot of people had heard that the language was taken out that required legislative approval to get out of Medicaid managed care, and celebrated that. And that is something to be celebrated because it was indeed taken out, but they put some other language in that basically did the same thing. So what they said was that any action that reduces the HMO tax that MCOs pay, so it's like a provider tax, and it helps us draw down extra federal money. If the state took some kind of action to reduce that HMO tax, that would not be allowed without legislative approval. If you get rid of the MCOs, you reduce the HMO tax. So in essence, it does the same thing. Now, somebody creative could probably figure out a way to make a workaround on this. But right now, as it stands, it would be really hard to get out of Medicaid managed care unless you found a different way, like a different way. So I think what they did was basically keep us locked into Medicaid managed care. It also requires the legislative okay for any state plan amendment or waiver request that's not already in process. So the ones with the home project and all are exempt from this because that's already in process. But any new ones that they would apply for, it has to be expenditure neutral. So it wouldn't require the state to spend more. If it does, it would require legislative approval. So it really limits what the department can do on its own. Technically, they probably should have always been getting legislative approval to do a waiver if it's going to cost more money. That's kind of always been the way it's been done in the past. So, but they did kind of change that language a little bit from where it was first drafted. It also requires Medicaid to report annually on exceptions to policy, and particularly looking at if there's trends in a certain service area or a certain category of persons. So like if there was a lot of exceptions to policy for a certain service on a certain waiver, I think they wanted to see that so that they could say, maybe we should be changing the law rather than requiring the exception to policy. And then as Carlin mentioned, that the MEPD program premiums would be allowed to be paid online. I know we're running out of time and I want to save time for Carlin Air at the end, but there was also the student discipline bill that finally got addressed in the end. And so they did move forward with a rural urban pilot for a separate school for kids that are in special education or disruptive students, but it does have to be voluntary and it has to comply with all of the federal IDEA, FAPE, all of those mixture of acronyms that they use in the education system. But there were also a lot of interesting new things added in that I know a lot of parents wanted about IEP team training on the least restrictive environment, requiring schools to make sure that all staff have access to the student IEP if they're interacting with that student. Teachers are going to have to sign something that says they read the IEP. Teachers can request a meeting at any time with the IEP team to talk through things. I guess some superintendents were denying that ability, and for teachers who are truly trying to make sure that they were complying with the law with the students in their classes, And then also requiring a little bit more training on what each teacher's role and supports need to be. So really trying to beef up the administration and education of teachers around that. So there were some good things in there that I know a lot of parents were asking for in that. Um, and budget highlights, just very quickly to go through, a lot of cost containment still in place, no increases in rates. I think probably the thing I heard the most about was the telehealth and the speech therapy cost containments, which cut reimbursements, but they also are looking at doing a waiver for the institutions for mental diseases, basically allows them to draw down some more federal money for the costs of providing care in the MHIs, which will reduce the MHI line item, but will increase the Medicaid line item. So you can still see we're paying for Glenwood still. And the census at Woodward's getting pretty low, so they're going to close one of the homes. Public transit got their funding cut. I just want to make one note that, of course, HHS needs to have new IT systems, but that's a lot of money, almost $130 million that are in the budgets in several spread out over 4 different budgets, which made it hard. I went in and added them all up, and my math may be wrong, but this includes the SNAP administration increase in it. So it's not all IT, but a lot of new administrative costs to implement all of this eligibility determination stuff. You can do a lot of money with that money. So Carlin.
Thanks, Amy, for leaving me a little time. I just need a little time to talk about summer. So what's next after a long and challenging session? And you could see we had some good things happen and lots of things to track about over 1,000 bills. So what can you do next and to get ready for next session and the election? What are you doing this summer? We've got some ideas. Summer and fall are a great time to build relationships with your elected officials or those who may become your elected officials, and you have a say in who that might be. It's a big election year. Candidates are going all over the place to get your vote, the ones that are statewide. So as we've talked about already, we have a Senate seat open, U.S. Senate, all of our congressional representatives in the U.S. House are we have 2 open seats and then 2 who are running for re-election. So they're all getting out to meet you as well as their opponents or their primary opponents too. We've got the governor, which that seat does not come that position does not come open that much. So it's a big year for that. In the Iowa, in the legislature, and the half of the Senate is up for re-election, and all of the House, because that's every 2 years. So those would be closer to you, more local level, and then local and county seats. And as Bailey mentioned, those are maybe even more important than the ones that we talk the most about. So what can you do? Get out and meet your candidates. Attend forums, ask questions about issues that are important to you. And also, if there's a candidate you like and you want to make sure they get elected, invite them to set up a meet and greet. You can help move along the people and the issues that are important to you in different ways. One of the things, or some of the things that we're working on for summer, sorry we don't have dates for some of these yet, are things like voter engagement and issue forums. So we're working on not setting up candidate debates, but talking about issues that are specific to the disability community and inviting candidates and then inviting you. And the idea is they're listening sessions for candidates to listen to you rather than a debate where we would be listening to them. So watch for that. And also, we invite organizations or individuals who want to organize something to apply for grants to do a local candidate forum or an issue forum. So we'll be sending out information here very soon. As soon as legislative session is over, then we have to move into voter engagement gear and pull all of these things together. So consider elections and your role as a voter and what you could do to change the issues that are being moved forward in this state, and maybe some move backwards in some respects, and that's at the federal level too. So your voice and your vote makes a difference. We have two youth events also to tell you about. So our Youth Leadership Academy is still open for application, and that's a online program in July. We have it the last week in July. It's every morning for a week. Youth get together and talk about leadership issues, and that includes civic engagement. So we talk about voting. And to cap that off, we have their graduation this year planned for an event at the zoo. And this zoo event is being planned by the Arc of Iowa, and anybody is invited to come. It's a day for the disability basically to come together at the zoo, and with the theme of Hear Us Roar. So should be a fun day. That's August the 4th, and we'll be sending out more information about that. And we also have our youth leaders who will be recognized that day at the zoo. And we hope you can join us. And what else did I miss? Anything?
Well, we could put a plug in for our Make Your Mark conference. We are taking calls for presentations right now, and we extended that to the end of May. So if you're interested in presenting in our fall self-advocacy conference, please do so. And you can go see that information on our website. I can put that in the chat too. I also put the chat to the Youth Leadership Academy application in the website as well.
And the Make Your Mark conference is September 16th and 17th this year in Ames. All right, well, turn it back over to Amy. Was that our last slide, Amy?
Yep, that's our last slide. So if anybody has a question, our epilepsy program funding language yes, Roxanne, they tried to cut epilepsy funding, the 144,000. So they did get it back into the budget. I think the issue was a few years ago, they took the line item out of the budget but kept funding it. And then this year they announced they were cutting the funding, but that they added the line item back in. So it worked.
Good news.
A lot of work to just get to where you're at right now.
We'll take the good news.
Yes, that is good news.
And did we just did the poll at the beginning? Are we doing it again at the end? About
No.
dates for capital chats?
Yeah, I think we got that. So we will announce the dates when I get my final report out here early next week. We're going to have a poll in for everybody that receives that. So once we get that, that feedback, we'll merge that in with what your responses are and get a date set for June. So hopefully within the next couple weeks, we'll know. So, all right. Well, thanks everyone. We got a minute. If anybody's got any extra questions. Otherwise, we'll let Jeff's hands get a rest. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Happy Mother's Day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.